Hi, this is Lainey Cameron, and I am here with Katie Allbaugh, who is one of the finalists in the Star Awards from Women's Fiction Writers Association. We're going to talk more about that, but first off, congratulations. This is a huge deal.
Thank you so much. It's a complete honor, and especially the organization. The Women's Fiction Writers Association is beyond awesome, and to be nominated for that one in particular is an honor.
And it's a big deal. So I want to show people the finalists if they haven't seen this yet. In fact, this is going to be announced. The winners are going to be announced here at the end of September. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it would be fun to have you on the podcast, in part because I realized, and this very much surprised me, that we've managed to have 5 out of the 6 finalists on the podcast already. So when I saw the finalist list, I was like, okay, Katie has to be on. You're the only one of the 6 I haven't talked to yet. We have really good odds hitting 5 out of 6, which says something about the quality of the writers and the books that we choose to be on this podcast. And your book, Face Down in Rising Sun, is one of the outstanding debut finalists. There are only 3. The other 2 have been on the podcast, Wildland by Rebecca Hodge, and Asani Sadir's book, The Green Wave, A Door Between Us, which is around the Green Wave movement in Iran. And then in the general category, which is the non-debuts, they actually split it into 2 different categories. You could only enter one this year. We have some of my favorite authors, Jamie Beck, Kim Taylor Blackmore, and Rebecca Taylor, all of whom who have been here with me. So I'm so excited that we get to talk about your book, Face Down in Rising Sun, today.
I am incredibly excited. And as you mentioned, the other authors again, it's kind of like being asked to prom with some really cool people.
Or ending up at the Oscars, walking down the red carpet, going, look at me, goodness gracious. So let's talk about your book. I'm so excited to hear more about it. So it's a little bit of crime fiction. It's historical. Why don't we start by just having you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, there was this beautiful young girl, Clara, and the setting is in 1920s, 1925, 26. Grew up in southwestern Wisconsin, Crawford County, which is an absolutely beautiful setting, and a large Norwegian family, and, just kind of a run-of-the-mill young lady, a wonderful character, but she was a real person. And she met a young man who was very dashing, exciting, everything she thought she wanted in life. She wanted to kind of leave this farm life and, rural existence behind. She wanted some more excitement. And so she, step by step kind of became more and more involved with him. And it was probably 6 months into their relationship that suddenly she just disappeared in the middle of the night.
And so you started to answer one of my questions, which was, is this based on a real life story? Yes. Mm-hmm. So she disappears. So how did you come across this story? Like why this one? Have you known it forever, or did you just find it someday? Like, where did this one come from?
That's an excellent question, because the business that my husband and I own, we visit local farms and things. We do home inspections, and there were so many people in that area of Crawford County, Wisconsin, that were like, well, you heard about what happened in Rising Sun, kind of the local lore first, and telling the story. And everybody has a little bit different version, because it was, it was a true story. But there were so many things left unsaid. And because it's historical, you have small pieces of it, but you don't have all of it. So I decided, one day I was out there kind of doing this little, basically tour of where she lived and where things happened. And a good friend of mine was with me, and I said, I'm just going to write her story. She deserves to have her story told. She was an amazing young woman. And some of the things that happened, it's interesting. It's hopefully engaging for everyone else. It was for me.
It was. I thought this was a fascinating idea for a book. And let's take a quick peek at a review here. This is a review by Linda. I don't know how to say Linda's name correctly. Illicit?
I believe it is. Yes.
And she does a great job of summarizing. She says, based on a real murder that occurred in 1926 in the hills of southwestern Wisconsin, all the characters in this novel are presented empathetically. I rooted for Clara, that's the main character, but I did understand where the other characters were coming from. The result is a story that is tragic on many levels, very well written. What a lovely review.
It is. When she posted that, I was so touched, because Linda is an award-winning author herself and has wonderful books. I've read several of them. And so when you hear from another author, that is especially gratifying.
Isn't that true? And I'd love to know more about your inspiration. So you had this story that was kind of part of local lore, but how did you decide what to do with it? Because you could have gone in so many different directions, right? Like, how did you decide how to approach it?
Very true. It would have been possibly easier to just write maybe straight true crime of what happened and not fill in the blanks. But the story of her family, the story of the background of even the culture of southwestern Wisconsin, and having been, I was born here, I was raised here. There's a love for the area, and wanting to really portray that in the beauty that's here. So I decided, one, I wanted to tell Clara's story, but two, there were holes in the story and what happened, and so I filled them in. That's where it became fiction, because there's a lot of this that no one knows to this day, what happened.
And it must be freeing, right? Not to have to stick exactly 100% to everything that's known, right? Like, you really got into her character, and like, you couldn't get into a character in the same way if you didn't do that.
Exactly. It was, at times it was so exhilarating. And of course, this is my debut novel. It was so exhilarating to write and talk about her. And, of course, there is some tragedy in this. And I had to put off one, chapter for I don't know how many days. I couldn't write it. And I'd sob while I wrote it. And I'm like, okay, I'm very close to this character. I admire her and love her. So telling her
So I'm
story.
actually interested a little bit in what you were saying. Like, it's your debut novel. Talk to me about the process of from when you started to it making it into the world. Was there a lot of editing involved? Did you go through a lot of revisions? Like, what did that look like?
Yes, maybe the preconceived notion that, you just go write a book and you hand it in to a publisher and they go, yay, you're getting published. Doesn't quite probably happen that way. But I wrote the story again because I love the story, and initially I wrote it pretty much for myself, just to tell her story. And more people read it, and actually I'm a retired educator. And one of the best things is a former student of mine who is a published author. She has a lot of novels. She read it and said, you need to think about publishing this. And at first I thought, I doubt it. I don't know. But it came from that. But then learning the process, that was really something. So, handing it over to beta readers and alpha readers and editors and on and on, and lots of changes, and really trying to research, even though it's fiction, to have it be real enough that probably the best compliment that I receive often from readers is, I can't tell where the true story ends and where the fiction picks up. And
that's great.
That's one of the biggest compliments, probably.
So this is an amazing journey, right? Like, to go from I'll write it to myself for myself to, okay, I'll edit it and release it, to I'm one of 3 novels chosen as the 3 debut novels by Women's Fiction Writers Association for 21. Gosh, what advice do you have? Because that's a heck of a journey. If you were talking to yourself, back a few years ago, maybe even before you started, or you were talking to other writers who look at you and say, wow, I wish I could do that. Like, what do you advise other writers?
I left a career that I really loved because of a health condition, and thought, okay, next chapter of life, what is it? And found this. And I guess what I would say is, if it's really your dream, pursue it. Go after it. There's so many people in our world right now who will tell us what's wrong and what you can't do. Find the people who will tell you can. And surround yourself with that positive, and be that positive yourself. Because, again, I've had such encouragement from so many authors and people along the way. And I, at times, it's like, I feel so undeserving, because it's like I'm one of many. I mean, there are so many gifted writers out there. So if you think you have that novel, that debut novel in you, go ahead, write it.
I love that. And clearly you are deserving, because this is not an easy final to get in. Like you saw, there's only three, and it is not an easy one at all. So what do you read? Do you read? What do you like to read? Read anything good recently?
I love all kinds of different genres. Recently, probably a favorite right up there is, I'm going to probably butcher her last name, Barbara Conway, Nowhere Near Goodbye.
Yeah,
and
she's been on the podcast. She's also a friend.
Amazing. It has been so amazing. I believe her book and Face Down and Rising Sun were in a book trib a publication together. And, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. From the first sentence, it was amazing. I also just read Silver Heights by J. Cole. Also great. So, and there's this huge to be read pile as I'm still researching, because there is a second novel underway. And so the exit strategy is in there.
Can I ask you about it? Is the second novel also historical fiction?
Yes. And it's even closer to where I actually live. And it involved an entire community and a young woman again. But her story is just, it was amazing as I'm starting to research it and thinking, wow, there's some substance in here to tell her story.
Well, let's take a quick peek at how people can connect with you. I know on Instagram, you're KD Allbaugh author. That's Baugh author. And I'll make sure to put the links on the episode page, along with the books that you recommended, links to the books that you recommended for folks. And I always like to wrap up by asking, is there anything you wanted to talk about today that I haven't asked you about?
I think just the gratitude that I have for so many readers reading this and sending maybe a message or finding me on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, and just sending a message of encouragement. I never realized until now, I always thought, well, I really enjoyed that book. Maybe I'll review it or something, but to just reach out to an author, especially a novice, and encourage them.
That's such great advice. Such a great thought.
Pay it forward and be encouraging to other people, because it helps you go the extra mile.
I love that. And I feel the same way. Like you don't think necessarily that an author who you perceive as, like, let's take Barbara Conway. Barbara Conway is a USA Today bestseller. Okay. Mm-hmm. But you don't necessarily think like, oh, I'll write to this USA Today bestseller and tell her, I'm really enjoying your book. But my goodness, it can make that author's month if you do that. Like, never underestimate.
I was so, almost a little fangirling, because I had just posted something on one of her Instagram pages that I loved this book, and she wrote back to me. I'm like,
Well, she's lovely, and she was on the podcast, and she's also a friend. So, and she's done a wonderful job with the debuts. She helped a lot of the debuts during her year as well. So
beautiful, beautiful writing, and like I said, just she reminds me of one of those people who is positive and just helps other authors to be the best they can be. And I think that's what we all need. Like, you're doing great. And I know you just won another award.
Thank you. I did. I won the American Fiction Award, which blew my mind.
But yeah, just encouraging each other.
Okay, well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today, and I'm excited that we're going to get this out while people can still read the book before it's even announced. I don't know who's going to win, because we won't know until the end of the month. So from my perspective, you're a winner. You got picked as one of 3 books. You're a winner already. Whatever happens in the actual night, I'm going to be there celebrating, actually in person, with lots of people with masks on in a ballroom in Albuquerque, and I will be jumping up and down for you. Take care, and it was wonderful to chat today.
Thank you so much.